Greetings, I'm State Representative Janine Nodder, and you're about to see the second episode of Season 17 of Chattin' with Janine. And I'm dressed very casually and comfortably this week because we're talking about hiking in New Hampshire, and my guest is a returning Chattin' guest, Ellen Kolb.
Hi, Janine. Ellen. Good to be here.
So you have a blog.
I do.
Yep.
Granite State Walker.
Granite State Walker, that's what it is.
And I've been writing it since 2006. And since the White Mountains already gets enough love, my specialty is southern New Hampshire, particularly parks, municipal and state, because there's so many things close to home that don't require mountain climbing that everybody can enjoy, and a lot of people don't know about them.
You started your blog in 2006?
Yes, I did.
That's when I started the show.
Yeah.
So you're on your 17th year of your
right.
blog, and I'm on my 17th year of chatting
Yeah.
with you, and Janine, and everyone else. So I brought a couple of books along too, because I've done some hiking with you and our friend Lynette Peterson. I'm wearing her color, Peterson purple and Janine green.
And you know, the last time we tried to find waterfalls was in a year that had drought, and a lot of the waterfalls weren't flowing. This year is very different. This would be a fabulous autumn for waterfall hiking.
Wow. I know we did Bridalveil Falls, and shout out to Juanita Dangle, because I'm pretty sure she's the one that bought me this book, and then I bought this one, Hiking New Hampshire. Used to hike with my son, and you've gone along. We did Pac Monadnock, and that one was not without peril. We witnessed the death of a cell phone.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Pro tip, don't leave your phone on the hood of the car when you're pulling out of a trailhead. It will not end well.
I believe there was also a banged up knee on that one, and
I'm here to say that's survivable.
And the very first hike that I went on with my son and you, and Lynette Peterson was calling you Mother Hubbard that day. She wouldn't stop calling you Mother Hubbard.
That was Mount Pemigewasset.
Yes. Well, when we moved here in '98, and I don't know whether it was '98 or '99, we tried. My husband was in really good shape back then, and I was not. I had a baby. He was my fifth baby, and we tried going on a family hike. We had his parents with us too. I had the baby on my back, and my two oldest kids gave up first and said, "I don't want to do this anymore." So they went back with Grandma, and I kept going. And I'm like, I don't really want to either. So the only ones that made it to the top of Indian Head was my husband, his father, and my second grader and third grader at the time. So that first hike, we made it all the way to the top, and I recognized the photos of where my two little boys were, because I remember freaking out, like, why'd you let them stand so close to the edge? Because that's how it looked.
Yeah.
And now I see, once I was up there, and I told my son, who wasn't even born at the time, you're standing in the exact spot that your brother stood.
It's a beautiful, beautiful overlook, the south end of the notch.
Yes.
Now, I can do some climbs, but I am much better at rail trails, flat trails.
So tell me about the rail trails.
And I do want to tell you about it. I brought some pictures of some of my favorites, and I wonder if maybe you can call up the Derry Rail Trail picture. Derry Rail Trail is part of a much longer trail that extends from Salem to Londonderry and will eventually extend all the way to Lebanon. But in Derry, it's a paved trail, so it's great for people with impaired mobility. Any wheelchairs can go on there, bikes,
strollers.
Walkers, strollers. And the artwork you see was done by local art students. They took a poem by Robert Frost, who taught in Derry for a while, and The Road Not Taken, and each line is illustrated with some designs, and it's just a wonderful feature of the trail. You find artwork in the oddest places, and you'll find it on the Derry Trail.
Is it painted on?
It's chalk.
Well,
it's a special chalk that survives weather conditions, and it can be touched up. And like some other rail trails, Derry also features an historical marker. The Black Heritage Trail just dedicated a marker in Derry that's on the trail right near Route 102 downtown to William Hobdy, who was the first black business owner in Derry and was also played ragtime piano at local events. So you never know what you're going to find when you go on a New Hampshire rail trail.
How long is this trail?
Derry is about 4 miles.
Oh, okay.
So 4 miles flat and paved. So it's a real treat. And anybody who wants to try a rail trail for the first time, maybe take a child on it, we have paved trails like Derry, Windham, the Nashua River Trail that starts in South Nashua and goes down into Massachusetts. Those are great ways to break into rail trails if someone hasn't done it before.
Goffstown has a rail trail?
Goffstown has one that connects with Manchester.
Right.
You can go from the center of Goffstown all the way to Fisher Cat Stadium.
Right, the Manchester Marathon, part of it is goes on the rail trail because I did the relay one, I don't know when it was, a few years, 2 or 3 years ago, after COVID. And the part that I ran was on the rail trail. And then when I finished, they told me to go up the road and catch the bus back to the start. So I went up the road. I'm like, oh, I know where I am. We have our county government meetings here.
Right, that's where I often park, is at the county offices, because then you can go either east or west and find good things. Anybody who's looking for science, you can find interesting things, ecology, history. It's not just the people who've lived in the area, but also the history of the rails themselves. There's a lot of short line railroads in New Hampshire that were built by business owners trying to get their goods to the city, and sometimes those did not prove to be economically feasible. Okay, and we benefit today because now they're used for recreational use.
So the rail trail is where the railroad was.
That's right.
They picked up the tracks and put down pavement.
Now, if you look at the Cotton Valley Rail Trail, which is it's between Wolfboro and Wakefield, you will find an unusual thing. That is the turntable that used to be used to turn around locomotives when a train got to one end of a line.
Yes, they have those featured in Thomas the Tank Engine.
Well, today there are small vehicles called rail cars, and there are rail car enthusiasts up in the Wolfboro area who use their cars on the trail, on the rails that are there, and in between the rails is for walkers and bicyclists. It's very unusual.
What do you mean? You walk between?
Yep, you walk between the rails.
And they're like on one rail?
Nope, they go on two. You can hear them coming, so you step off to the side.
Visualizing it.
There's no other trail in the state like that, but that's a fun one right up in the Lakes region.
And how long is that one?
I think it's, forgive me, about 8 miles. It's Wolfboro to Wakefield, so that's up in Carroll County. And that turntable is one of the neatest features because you won't find one that size very often in the state.
When is your favorite time to hike?
The fall, no question, no question. Everything's beautiful no matter where you go, no matter which trail you're on. And I brought a book, the second edition of New Hampshire Rail Trails. I'm finishing up a term on the board of the New Hampshire Rail Trails Coalition, and I had the privilege of serving with Charles Martin, who wrote this book.
Oh, nice.
There is a third edition in the works, but right now Charles went all over the state, documented every trail, its conditions, what kind of scenery it has, how well it's developed. It's a wonderful guide, and his descriptions of the trails alone are worth the book. And I used this as a guide to explore every single rail trail in the state, and the coalition has a patch that can be awarded to anyone who explores all the trails.
Do you have the patch?
I don't have it with me. I've got it actually up on the wall in my room.
Now, every time I see one of those green historic signs, I think of you because anytime I travel with you, we'd say, oh, pull over. I don't have a picture of that one. And you were collecting them all. And then we found a book that had them all in one place.
Love
and
that
we bought
one.
that. We pitched in under, I think there was 4 of us that worked together. We bought that book for you.
That was a wonderful treat.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't have a picture today of the Presidential Trail, which is up between Gorham and Whitefield. But if you're ever hunting for historical markers, right there on Route 2, you'll see one. On 115, you'll see one. And the Presidential Trail goes right along there, so you can enjoy a beautiful day on the trail with a view of the White Mountains and get some historical markers at the same time. You can't beat that.
That's cool. I think you have a couple more pictures.
I do. Let's look at one for the Northern Rail Trail. The photo I have is of Potter Place up in Andover. Now, the Northern Rail Trail is exceptional. It's about 50 miles long. It goes from Boscawen, just north of Concord,
50 miles,
all the way to Lebanon. And Andover is where you'll find Potter Place. That is the restored depot that you see there. It's used by the Historical Society.
If I bought it, it could be the Nodder.
There you go.
Place. Yeah.
But Potter is the name of Richard Potter, and there's a marker there for him. That's another stop on the Black Heritage Trail. He was an entertainer in the early 19th century in the area. And the Northern Trail is unpaved, but it is wide between Boscawen and about Danbury. It is wide, stone dust, very suitable for just about any user.
Wheelchairs too?
Around Andover, yes. Further north and west, it's more like a single track. But rail trails have a way of getting developed a piece at a time. It relies on volunteers, grants, and cooperation with the state. And a piece at a time is how all of these were built.
Have you done all 50 miles of that one?
I have.
Now, how long did it take you?
Well, I did a piece at a time. It took me about 4 years to do all the trails in the state. And I'd go up and I walk. I generally don't bike. I walk, so I can do between 5 and 10 miles at a time. And since it's out and back, it took me a bunch of visits. My longest day was 15 miles between Andover and Danbury, and it's one of the most, and it was a fall hike, one of the most beautiful,
yeah.
one of the most
Take your time
beautiful.
and enjoy the scenery.
And I think I've got one more. The Sugar River Rail Trail runs between Claremont and Newport. That's 8 miles long. And what distinguishes this one is the number and type of bridges. What you see in the picture is actually a covered bridge for rail cars. It's very tall. You stand in it and it's beautifully maintained. That is a trail that can be used by ATVs as well as walkers. Not every rail trail is like that. But if you go midweek, the ATVs aren't going to be numerous enough to bother you. So you'll see this beautiful wooden bridge, you'll see steel bridges. It's amazing how in 8 miles you can get such a different type of bridges through all of it. That was a surprise to me. I went to do this sort of checking the box to say that I did it. It was one of the best hikes I had looking for trails.
Sugar River Rail Trail has kind of a ring to it. Huh?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I like
yes,
that.
it does. So again, you think you know what you're looking for. You'll look at a guide and you'll read up and you'll be prepared to see something on the trail, and there'll always be something to surprise you.
All right, so you have some notes on your notes.
I do.
So go through those because I have another question for you.
The New Hampshire Rail Trail Coalition has a biennial conference, and we've got one coming up on October 27th in Concord at the McAuliffe Shepherd Center, running from 8:30 till 4. And anyone is welcome. The registration charge is $25. Anyone who just wants to learn about trails can see presentations from different trail groups around the state. Policymakers can learn about the laws that affect the development of trails. It's for really anybody with any interest in rail trails or alternative transportation or recreation in New Hampshire. So
what day of the week is that?
It's on a Friday.
A Friday, okay.
You'll find out more at nhrtc.org.
rtc.org.
And if you join the Rail Trail Coalition, go online and join it. This book is free of charge with your membership.
Oh, cool. Okay. And then what else do you have on there?
That's it.
Oh, okay, awesome. Because you told me about an adventure that you had. I think it was when you turned 50.
Yes.
And can you tell our viewers, we have 13 minutes, the condensed version?
The condensed version. I decided when I was about 47 that when I hit 50, I was going to celebrate with a bang. Now, given my physical conditioning, that bang was kind of small, but I knew I wanted to do it. And I had read a great deal about the North Country, Coos County, and the Coos Trail, which runs from Crawford Notch up to the Canadian border. And I thought, I want to walk that. I want to hike that trail. Now, the mountainous part was not for me, and as I trained over the ensuing 3 years, it became clear to me I needed to choose a section. And so I did a section from Coleman State Park in Stewartstown all the way up to the Canadian border. I climbed that ridge and stood on the ridge with the marker for US and Canada, about 80 miles, and had a very good time and a very instructive time. I did some silly things like I trained to walk and I trained and didn't do it with a pack.
What do you mean, a pack?
A backpack. So the first time I stepped off to start my hike with a pack on my back, I was totally unprepared. That was an adventure. But I saw some beautiful places I'd never seen before. The lakes in the northern part of New Hampshire are not to be missed. And I discovered people heard that I was hiking, and I got so much kindness and consideration. A guide up in Pittsburgh said, "Let me take you up East Inlet," which flows, it's out of the Second Connecticut Lake, and saw birds and fish that I had not seen before. I got to go to the dedication of a trail on the Canadian side that links up with the Coos
Did you have
Trail.
your passport with you?
I did.
Yeah,
Had
good
my
for you.
passport, and we had a wonderful celebration on the Canadian side. So it takes time to plan something like that. I would not launch on a trail without preparation.
You spent overnight. It took more than a day.
Oh,
so
yeah, it was 10 days.
10 days. Oh, wow. Good for you. So tell me, what did you do for meals? What did you do for bathing?
Well, you know, I brought my tent, and I only spent 3 nights in the tent because people would say, I've got this bunk above my workshop, or, you know, instead of tenting on my land, let me give you a camp. And I thought that meant like a 3-sided shelter. No, she meant a cabin on her
Nice.
property, a hunting cabin.
People are nice.
I listened to the loons all night. It was on Clarksville Pond. Again, I couldn't have expected that. I trained for the trail, and I got an experience that went way more than hiking.
What did you eat?
I packed energy bars. The stuff that I could carry was very lightweight. Energy bars, peanut butter on tortillas. Bread got mashed, so I like tortillas. I went through a lot of Gatorade. I should have packed more. When I got to Pittsburgh and resupplied, I hit up Young's store for a lot of Gatorade.
So how many miles did you do a day?
It depended. My longest was 19. And that was the last day when my husband said, "You could smell the barn. You knew you were ready to come home." Sometimes as few as 8. And I did take one absolute zero in there. It was the day of Pittsburgh's Old Home Day. And the people who welcomed me to the bunk in their house said, "Oh, come on down and with us to the party." And I'd never been to an Old Home Day. And the parade and a concert and cookout on the town green. Again, I couldn't have expected that. It was a wonderful experience. Always be prepared in New Hampshire for whatever adventure you're doing. You know, if you're hiking, obviously you want to carry the 10 essentials. You want to have good shoes.
What are the 10 essentials?
Have things like a map and compass, not just your phone.
A working
Have
compass.
a whistle. Have rain gear. You can learn more about that at hikesafe.org. So you go out prepared, but there will always be something to surprise you. And most of those surprises are very good.
Was it mostly flat or hilly? Or
It was
what
hilly.
was the most challenging part of it?
The most challenging part was actually not a hill, it was a rainy day. It was a rainy day, and this was in Stewartstown, going on snowmobile trails that hadn't been mown. This was August after a rainy summer, so it was very grassy, and some of the signs were obscured, and a bee stung me, and I got rained on, and my tarp didn't really do a good job for me. And I just got to Lake Francis State Park and said, I'm ready to go home. No, I wasn't ready to go home. I just got a good night's sleep, and I was all set.
What did you do about your hair? Did you need to wash it during those?
Oh yeah, I washed it at Lake Francis. There's
do they have
there's a shower
shampoo
there.
in there, or do you have to carry that too?
Carry that, or just
okay.
use a bar of soap. And believe me, after you've been hiking all day, you don't care if you don't have all the goodies. You just enjoy the clean water.
I know Lynette Peterson and her daughter, they would their clothes would be so foul they buried a set.
Oh yeah, when
they
I
dug
got
a hole,
home,
buried a set.
when I got home, I left my backpack outside until I was ready to unload it. But that also gave me a chance to see some of New Hampshire's state parks that people don't often get to see. Coleman, up on Big Diamond Pond in Stewartstown, is especially nice for anglers because of Little Diamond Pond up there, and Big Diamond isn't far away. And it's just a beautiful place to rest. And now, since I was there are now lodges at Coleman that can be rented by large groups. It's converted houses. that can be rented. And then there's Lake Francis State Park on Lake Francis with kayak rentals, which I took advantage of every time I'm up there. If I've got time, I rent a kayak and go up there in a while. And after that miserable hiking day I told you about, I got to Lake Francis State Park and fell asleep to the sound of a loon and the sound of the Connecticut River flowing into Lake Francis, and just there's nothing like it. It's beautiful.
What time of the year was this?
This was August.
August.
And then there's Deer Mountain State Park, which is 5 miles from the Canadian border and very rustic. It doesn't have any utilities, so make sure you've got water. They do have a spring. But the sky at night, 5 miles from the Canadian border, is like nothing you'll see in the southern New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
How much did your backpack weigh with all this?
It weighed about 20 pounds, which for me was a lot. Again, train yourself before you go off on a long hike. Or if you're doing day hikes, get used to carrying a pack. Do that on a rail trail.
So someone who has never hiked before, but they're thinking about it, what would you suggest?
I would say if you're here in Merrimack, first of all, we have our wonderful conservation areas. It's my privilege to serve on the Merrimack Conservation Commission. Go to Greater Woods, go to Horse Hill.
Where's Greater Woods?
Greater Woods is behind Merrimack Middle School, off of Madeline Bennett Drive.
Yeah.
Horse Hill is off of Amherst Road. And if you go to merrimackoutdoors.org, you'll be able to find a description of our properties, and you'll be able to download maps. There are also maps at the trailheads. And explore. Take a look.
What if you see a bear? What do you do if you see a bear?
If you see a bear, the bear is more likely to flee from you than you are from the bear. Don't tease them. Keep your distance. Don't feed them. They're not cute. They're not there to be fed. Keep your distance and enjoy the surprise. Just don't tease them and don't run. You back away slowly.
Back away slowly. Okay. merrimackoutdoors.org, you said.
That's right.
Where's your favorite place?
Horse Hill.
Horse Hill?
I love Horse Hill. I love the pond that's there. There's like a little less than half a mile walk in and you come to Lastowka Pond, where you will see a heron rookery, and you'll see evidence of beaver. Heron rookery. That is where great blue herons raise their babies there.
A hookery?
Rookery.
Rookery.
Yep. You'll see trees
Heron
with great
rookery.
big nests near the top. And if you go the right time of year, you'll hear the juveniles screeching for food. They just screech until they're brought their food. And evidence of beavers too. So even if you don't go all the way into the property, just go as far as that pond and it's worth a visit.
Well, I haven't done as much hiking as you, obviously, and I haven't been hiking for a number of years now, since probably before COVID. But my favorite place that I've been to was Bridal Veil Falls.
We had a good time going to that, didn't we?
Yes, I went once with Lynette and then once with you.
I call that the backside of Cannon Mountain just because I'm so used to passing Cannon on I-93. Well, if you go to the west side, you'll find Bridal Veil, Coppermine Trail, Bridal Veil Falls. It's a 2.5 mile trail that goes up 1,100 feet, and you think that's a big climb.
Wow,
no,
you're so knowledgeable. I'm reading it out of the book as you're saying it.
It's very gradual. It's very pretty, especially when the brook is going, and it has a plaque in it that's unlike anything you'll find in the state.
Tell us about the plaque.
Betty Davis, the actress of some renown, was married to a gentleman from Sugar Hill, and he passed away an untimely death, and a plaque appeared in Coppermine Brook that says, "To the keeper of stray ladies from a grateful one." And we have reason to believe that was Betty Davis's tribute to her husband.
Yes, and I remember, were you there with Lynette that time?
Not with
Lynette.
Lynette.
My sons, my son and Peter Mulvey, his friend. But it took us a while to find it.
Yeah.
But there's like this primitive campground. So
it's like a clearing in the woods.
And you go through the clearing, and then we found it.
Again,
it
always
faces
a surprise.
the water too, so it's not. You have to look for it, and you go like this.
The more you walk in New Hampshire, the more you develop an eye for things. You'll start expecting the unexpected, and that always leads to good things.
So Bridal Veil Falls said that it's Franconia White Mountain National Forest, Grafton County. The best time to visit is suggested May to October.
It's not a place to go for views, but it's beautiful forest.
And I do have one more question, because we do have females watching. And, well, I don't need to tell you, we don't have outdoor plumbing. We have indoor plumbing. So what do you do?
I prefer to wait until I get to a facility.
So hold it. Go before you leave. All right.
Go before you leave, absolutely. There are alternatives. We'll discuss that at some point. But no,
Is it on your blog? Can you?
I will mention that actually. And
Okay.
I prefer to go before and go after. That's something our state parks are very good about.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you've never hiked before, start local. If you want to explore a little more, try a rail trail. And then when you're ready, go anywhere in the state and you will find someplace beautiful.
Well, New Hampshire is a very beautiful state, and Ellen, you just never cease to amaze me. You're just very knowledgeable. I think it's like you were saying things that I was reading in the book, and you didn't know what I was looking at, what you were saying.
Well,
Did I make sense?
I moved up from Florida 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago now, and I was sure I'd never get used to New Hampshire. Now I can't imagine living anywhere else.
I feel the same, but we've only been here since 1998.
Yeah. Well, this state has gifts for everyone.
Well, I thank you for coming on the show, and
Thanks for inviting me.
I'll be talking to you again. So I'm going to check out your blog,
Okay.
and I'll look into this. Maybe I'll see what I'm doing on October 27th.
Okay.
All right.
Everybody's welcome.
And thank you for watching.